Welcome to the Modern Monk podcast. This is episode number 14. My name is Cormac Taylor. I'm here with Toby Chilver. How you doing, Tobes?
Feeling good. Here we go, number 14.
Yeah. Today we have a topic which I was just saying to Toby, I don't know how it's taken us so long to dedicate a whole podcast episode to this, because we talk about this almost every single podcast, and that is consistency. Consistency is consistently shown up in these podcasts, but I think it's time that we address it as an entire episode.
Yeah, it's on theme. I think it's the most used word that isn't like a linking word across all the 13 podcasts so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels like we're going back to our roots, back to the core here with number 14.
I would agree. This is definitely part of the foundation. So let's start off. Let's define some terms here. What is consistency?
Okay, completing repetitions at predetermined intervals across a long time horizon. So you got to have done this thing multiple times at the times that you said you were going to do it across a long enough time that you're like, okay, you've reliably done that now for a period. You are consistent.
Yeah.
I think that's when you achieve consistency.
It's a hard one to define because the time horizon is dependent on what the goal is. The frequency of the input is hard to define because, again, you don't know what the goal is. You don't know what the frequency is going to be. So it's a hard one to define, but I have a very similar definition to you. I just said it's completing the actions at a stable frequency over a long enough time horizon that it would be unreasonable that you do not achieve your goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I almost expected you to finish the definition with that that little caveat, because that's what I also want to flow into next on, is about the likelihood that it's going to increase your chance of achieving your goal. Because essentially, in the domain that we talk about consistency, it's about completing actions that are aligned with achieving your goal. And so the reason we keep coming back to it is we talk about the things you can do to increase your likelihood of achieving all of these goals that you have in life. And so like it makes sense that you're using that part of the definition with consistency, because it's a key unlock to increase that likelihood that you're going to complete these great things, these goals that you have.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we understand what the inputs are, we know, okay, what are the actions that are going to get us to our goal eventually, then it's just like, how long can I do this for so that it would be so unreasonable that I don't achieve my goal, that I can pretty confidently say, okay, after X years, it's going to happen. It's almost a guarantee. And it's, the number you might not know, it might not be a fixed number, but it's more about being able to continue to do the actions to the point where it would just be ridiculous to not be able to have achieved those goals.
Yeah, and if you think about, when you start completing, when you do an action for the first time, it's like the novelty, it's going to take you the longest, whatever, and then you do it again, it gets easier, but it's probably still interesting, and then you hit the point of like boredom, where you're like, okay, I'm kind of sick of doing this. I've done bench press for 6 months now, and maybe you want to try and do some other wacky chest exercise, but consistency is pushing through that initial state of boredom, I think, until it's ingrained in part of your identity, and it's just a routine that is so like integral to what you do. That someone can just say, oh yeah, he's consistent in the gym, because it's just who you are. You just go to the gym. It's almost like an obsession. Like you're compelled to do it more than you have to be motivated to do it.
Yeah, it's almost bringing it into your personal standards. And this is a podcast that we did exclusively as well, talking about personal standards, but it's getting it to the point where it's just what you do. It's just part of your life. It's just what you do on the day to day. Because I like what you said there, is getting past the initial boredom. Because I think for a lot of us, the first, depending on the goal, but the first week or the first month is really exciting. You go, oh, this is great. New Year's has arrived. I've got all these goals. And you set out and you're doing really well. And then it starts getting boring, or it starts getting a little bit hard and you don't have the motivation. Then you're pushing through a period where you might not have the motivation, it might be boring, and you continue to be consistent until it becomes a personal standard. Once it becomes a personal standard, it becomes ingrained into who you are. That's when you unlock the big long-term benefits.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. What I wanted to ask you though is, it's obviously easier to be consistent if you have to do the task less regularly, the interval's longer. Like if I only have to go to the gym once a year, and that's my standard, that's what I'm saying, it's very easy to be consistent if, that's the benchmark. Do you think for you personally, or would you recommend to others, setting a frequency that is very easy to achieve. So you can say, okay, I am consistent, and then maybe increase the interval? Or would you say set the interval that is most likely to, get you the highest chance of success to your goal, and find consistency that way, in like where you might have more consistency in a shorter period with higher frequency, or longer frequency between?
Yeah, it's a hard balance, because if you start out by doing a frequency of actions that, if you continue to that rate, it won't get you to your goal, then it's not the end destination. But I think consistency is the end goal. Being able to do something consistently overrides how quickly you can start taking action. So I think the best way to start is with something that you can do. But in my definition, I said over a long enough time horizon, there would be unreasonable that you don't achieve your goals. But no matter how long the time horizon is, if your consistency, your input is working out once a year, you're probably never going to get to your goal. You know what I mean? So it has to slowly progress to the point where you can comfortably say, okay, if I continue with these inputs, it will get me to my goal. But consistency is the goal at the start. It's how can I do actions on a regular basis? And the actions eventually have to get to the point where you can say, okay, well, if I just keep doing this, I will get to my goal. It will be possible. But I think definitely consistency is the number one priority. So if you have to start off easy, I would definitely do that. I think the biggest struggle that people have is they have this moment of motivation, and then they try and do everything at once. And then a week later, they're doing nothing again. And it was like, what was the point of that whole week? That was completely worthless. You'd be much better off doing it very, very slowly, progressing really slowly, and eventually getting there. Because if you're thinking about your goals zoomed out over what does this goal look like in 5 years' time, then how quickly you started taking actions is not really that important. It matters more that you continue to do the actions over the 5 years. So for example, if you're trying to get in really good shape, and if you zoomed out over 5 years, you want to say, okay, in 5 years, I want to be in really good shape. You maybe wouldn't work out 7 days a week in your first week. You might go, all right, let me go once or twice a week. And then slowly you might build it up. I mean, when it comes to getting in great shape, you might only need to go 3 or 4 days a week. But it's like, okay, if I can do this 4 days a week, every week for 5 years, whoa, I'm going to be in a good spot. But maybe that means that you have to start a bit slower and build up. Much better than starting at 4 days a week for a week and then giving up.
Yeah, and this is something that I've personally struggled with a lot. Even as recently as when I started learning Spanish, I thought, okay, I'll set myself, a goal here. I'll do 100 minutes a day. And, then maybe I hit 2 days, and then the third day, only get 20 minutes, and the next day maybe completely miss it. Just going way too hard out the gate, and then you stumble much earlier than you ever would have, and it's really demotivating. It's hard to get back on track. You haven't built any consistency. I would much prefer nowadays set a bar that is completely achievable. Like, okay, 15 minutes a week. You complete that, then okay, well, I can add more now. But I have to, consistency is number one. And it comes back to the standards podcast we talked about with the number one standard has to be that you don't break your standard. So if you're setting your goal and you're setting your frequency, that is essentially a standard. I'm going to complete X task at X interval. That is a standard you've set for yourself. So if you set it too high, you're going to break the number one goal, which is don't break your standards. So yeah, I agree that I think you have to do as small as you can that you will 100% be able to complete, and then work on increasing the frequency until it gets to the point where it's unlikely you don't achieve your goal. But I think it's default for everyone to do the opposite. The motivation spikes, and you do all of your free time for 3 days. Yeah, it's a bit backwards.
I would link this, what we're talking about right now, to 2 podcasts in particular. The first one is setting goals aligned with you, and particularly setting good goals. If you're setting bad goals, if your goal is I want to lose 10 kilos in 10 weeks, then you're going to go all out, and it's going to be really hard, and you're probably going to quit and not get that consistency. Setting proper goals, and particularly setting goals related to inputs rather than outputs, is a big one. And then also having the long-term thinking. If you were thinking, how do I want to look in 5 years? Not how do I want to look in 10 weeks? then you're going to have very different outcomes, and the inputs that you're going to do are very, very different. And this is going to allow you to get to a result in the end, because the time is going to pass either way. 5 years is going to come up either way. Where would you rather have been? The person who's tried 50 different diets, the person who's tried 50 different workout routines, the person who's tried to learn Spanish 10 different times, or the person that just did a little bit every day for 5 years and they're in a pretty good spot?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think it comes back to like, you want to become the person who has that identity. Like, they are the person that does this thing that's entwined into how you create the goal. There's no X deadline in which point, what next, you know? It's just part of who you are. Yeah. So what does consistency mean for long-term growth?
I think if you have the correct inputs, then consistency guarantees your success. I refer to this equation a lot, and I almost refer to it in the definition of consistency here. But if you can set yourself the equation, I'm going to start calling this the consistency equation. If you set yourself the equation of, if I just do these actions on a consistent basis for a long enough period of time, it would be unreasonable that I do not achieve my goals. That is, at the end of the day, what we're trying to get to. And as long as you're correct about those actions, if you just continue to do those and do those consistently, you will achieve your goals. Like, it is almost a guarantee. For example, if your inputs, and I will go back to the fitness example because I think it's a pretty obvious input-output equation. If you set yourself the goal of, okay, I want to eat around maintenance calories every day for 5 years, and I want to go to the gym 4 days a week, and I just do that consistently, it would be so unreasonable that you are not in really good shape by that period of time. It would be so completely unreasonable. And I think you can do this for all of your goals. If I just have these inputs correct, then the consistency almost guarantees that you'll get to that goal.
Yeah. And what I want to link in here is another podcast episode on the 80-20, because the reason that the fitness one works so well is because the 80-20s are so obvious. So if you can pick the actions, okay, this is just the 80-20, like this is the lowest hanging fruit where I know this has like such great returns for like minimal effort. Like, this is just the one thing that really moves the needle. And you put that in the equation, then you just know you're heading towards your North Star, like no matter what. Like, sure, you might need to tweak it later on, but if you can find these really low hanging fruit that are just like really, really big needle movers, like, it just makes that equation so much more simple.
Yeah, the 80-20 was a beautiful podcast because one of the conclusions we came to was that you can chase and pursue multiple goals. If you're only, by the way, the 80-20 principle being doing the 20% of things that produce 80% of the results, the big movers, and not worrying about optimizing all of the small things. But if you just do those 80-20s, which don't take up a huge amount of time, for a consistent basis, you're almost guaranteed to achieve that goal. And because they don't take up much time, you can do this and stack this for multiple different goals. And in 5 years' time, have achieved a lot of different things rather than just one or two. I think that's the issue with some of these things that we might do on the side as hobbies, is we try to over-optimize them and go for the 20% or the 80% of things that produce 20% of the results. Mm-hmm. And it kind of restricts you in what you can actually produce in the long term. But if you just say, okay, let me just work out 4 days a week, not 7, and let me just do that for a long period of time, then I'm going to be in really good shape. And that's also 3 days I have to run. And now I can run 3 days a week. And now I can have run 40 marathons in 5 years as well, right? I can now add another goal, and then you can add another one. Okay, I can now spend time learning Spanish, and I can do this. And you can just stack on more goals with the 80-20s. And if you can apply the 80-20s with consistency, you can achieve a lot of different things and become a very unique character with a lot of different attributes and a lot of different qualities. And that's pretty cool and pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, and not even just achieve lots of different things. You become like a balanced person because you are able to dedicate, or you're just moving the needle in different areas of your life. I think we talk about this a lot, that a lot of people in the self-improvement space, especially like around our age, are hyper-focused on business, and they find success there, and then they don't apply the 80-20 principle. They go 100%. They just dedicate all of their free time, all their energy into just to making business as successful as possible. And that gets them huge amounts of results and, you know, accolades, but it's all very niched into one area of life. And I think ultimately, like, if you think about the life you want to live, there's probably like multiple different areas of your life that you want to be sufficient in, if not like slightly above average, like relationships, health, like, you know, these big three buckets that we talk about. Like we want to be able to be balanced. And I think when you can apply consistency with 80-20, you're able to achieve that balanced outcome.
Yeah, and I think it's a rarity now because there's only so much that money can do for you. Especially when money allows you to do what you want with your time and where you want to be. The other unlocks are all materialistic things that are going to seem cool at this period of time, right? You have a cool car for 2026, which looks like a piece of shit in 20 years, right? You have a cool phone in 2026. A lot of these things are generally status signaling goods, or, you know, some sort of technology that you have that is good for this period of time. But outside of the freedom of time and location, there's a very limited amount of things that money can buy you. But if you obsess over that exclusively rather than try to develop yourself in other areas, I think you're missing a huge part of your potential that you can have as a person.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a little bit taboo that people think about like setting goals and being consistent with like relationships or with even like health, like some areas of health, or even like mental health or whatever. Like it seems really taboo that like, oh no, we only do this for like productive things like work and like business and, you know, career. But really, like, how many people are inconsistent at catching up with family and friends that they really want to speak to? Like, do you have that long distance friend that, you know, you were really close 5 years ago, but now you live in different cities? When was the last time you called them? Probably like over a year ago. It's like, imagine if you were just like a little bit more like 80-20 consistent with that. Like you would have a much stronger connection to them. You would probably be more fulfilled. You'd feel more supported. You'd have more of a network. I don't know. Yeah, I'm really bullish on applying 80-20 consistency to like a lot of areas of life. Like I don't think you lose, like you're becoming too procedural or like, you know, becoming too hyper optimized, productive in all areas of your life. Like I think it actually just allows you to become more balanced and fulfilled and enjoy the things that like health and relationships and these other less, I don't know, productive money focused ambitions can give you.
Yeah, I think this is the unlock for the lifetimes of progress in years, is stacking and combining the 80-20 with the consistency. I think when these two come together, it's crazy. When I look back on that podcast we did about the 80-20s, one of the things that we said, one of the questions was, when is the time not to 80-20? And we talked about how if you want to be great at something, if you want to be the absolute best at something, don't 80-20 it. But the more I think about it now, the more I think, isn't being great being really good at a lot of different things? Are you trying to be the GOAT at something? I think if we're being really honest with ourselves, very few of us are actually genuinely trying to be the greatest of all time at one individual thing. We're going to obsess over this and let it consume our lives completely. The more I think about it, the more I think maybe 80-20 plus consistency in as many areas of your life as possible is the GOAT, is being the GOAT of your life, rather than just trying to obsess and be the best at one specific thing. Because I think for a lot of us, we don't even necessarily want that.
Yeah, okay, I've got 2 comments here. One, I think it is good and you will be obsessed and not 80-20 particular things for periods of time. Like for right now, for both of us, that's business because it's the thing that's lacking the most. It's the bucket that needs the most attention, and it's the thing that unlocks us being able to live the lifestyles we want to live indefinitely. So like in that way, we are obsessed and like for a short period of time trying to become the greatest we can be. But then that gets dialed back into an 80-20 once that like threshold is reached. And yeah, I think you're right. No one really wants to become the greatest of all time at anything because there's too much of a sacrifice of everything else. Most people want to become like a one of one in terms of, I just want to reach my fullest potential. And you're not really going to reach your fullest potential unless you're 80-20ing multiple things in your life. Like you can only really do one. You can be one of one and like have a fulfilled, like balanced life in which you are reaching your fullest potential of like all the different attributes and characteristics and avenues that make you you, or you can probably be like the greatest of all time in one endeavor. And like you see that, like you see the LeBron, you see, you know, the Tiger Woods, like these people are so obsessed at their craft and it is the thing that, it is their whole identity, and they have become the greatest of all time. But a lot of the time it's come at huge sacrifice to other areas of their life. Most people, in fact, no one should want that. Like there's actually probably something mentally a little bit wrong with you for you to be desiring that. Like you're probably fueled by something a bit negative. You don't value yourself enough. You think you have to prove who you are and the things you do to, to other people. That creates that level of drive that's even required to be the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
I would never wish that upon people that are close to me.
Yeah. Well, I would agree that if you kind of need to get the 80-20s right. I think particularly for health, you need to figure out the health. I think I was actually thinking about this last night, particularly for men. If you can figure out the health early on, if you can get it to a point that it's really good, to where you're actually slowing down your speed of aging, the age that you are, that physical number, is actually not super relevant. The huge disadvantage that women have, unfortunately, is that they have a biological clock if they want to have children, which progresses and pushes your life along further. But I think for men in particular, if you can get your health right, you can slow down the speed at which your life moves, which allows you to then take on challenges and do it for longer without having some sort of requirement to continue and move forward in your life. I think if you can get the 80-20s for certain things like health right, then I think when you have these periods where you're motivated and you're wanting to be obsessed with certain things, you can lean into that a bit. And I think you will naturally have tendencies towards obsessing over certain things, and that's fine. But I think if you're trying to be the GOAT, you're going to have to do it and be obsessed with it and be consistent with it for longer than you love it. And I think that's the problem, is that we're going to want to do this stuff when we're like, oh, I'm really into running right now. I'm really into the gym right now. This is fantastic. But if you're trying to be the GOAT, you have to be really into it for 20 years.
Forever.
And you probably won't be. And it's going to hurt and be really painful. So I think if you can get the 80-20s right, then I think lean into the things that you're obsessed with at the time, but it's unlikely it's going to be there forever. And I think there'll be a lot of pain trying to pursue one thing obsessively to become the GOAT.
Yeah, I agree. And then you just come back to the 80-20 to consistency. Once you lean out of that obsessive state, you've reached that level. Okay, well, tell me when have you actually used consistency in your life? Give me the real life, the rundown.
There's a lot of areas where I think have benefited from consistency, but I think the biggest test of consistency recently has been the Spanish endeavors that I've taken on. So this year I realized, or 2025, halfway through 2025, I realized, okay, I want to learn Spanish. This is a big goal that I want to achieve. So I tried to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? What is the way that I want to learn Spanish? And I came across this method called the comprehensible input method, where you essentially expose yourself to a lot of Spanish content, and it starts off being a lot of visual cues, people speaking very slowly, and then slowly it progresses, less visual cues, and just people speaking more normally. I set myself the goal of spending 4 hours a day doing this. I knew that the point where you get to 1,000 hours, it's the optimal time to start immersing yourself in the culture, start speaking, start reading and writing. But until then, the best thing you can do to have this native type pronunciation and understanding of the language is to just consume 1,000 hours. So I thought, okay, I plan to go and immerse myself in the culture in April of 2026. I have 7 months. How many hours a day do I need to get 1,000 hours in, including my small bit of background I had in Spanish? And it was 4 hours a day. So it's like, okay, so for 4 hours a day on average, you have to consume Spanish input for 7 months. And we're nearly at the end of month 5 now. And it has been a ridiculous test, because being consistent in areas like fitness, it's like, okay, I have to rock up for an hour a day, maybe an hour every second day, which is good. You need to be consistent and you'll get good results. But doing something 4 hours a day was a test. It is a test. And it's a struggle, and it's much harder than anything I've ever done, but the results are big. I mean, my comprehension of the Spanish language has improved considerably, and I think I'll continue this method to learn quite a few languages this way, but it has definitely been the biggest test of consistency.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, how many hours has it been now?
I'm at 700 now.
Yeah, 700 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking about, don't go out the gate too hard, don't, because you're going to trip and fall if you go too hard out the gate. But this is a true testament to this being the pinnacle of like where your relationship with consistency is, because obviously you've been on this journey of becoming a consistent person for a year or more than that now, and it started out with much easier things like going to the gym, like tracking calories, like these other things which were less frequent and less time intensive at that frequency. So it's a huge testament to how much you value consistency and how much you've used it in your life to now be able to say that 5 months ago I set myself the goal of doing something for 4 hours every day, and you've completed, like you've achieved consistency. It's like part of who you are now.
And it's a good point, because we talk about not throwing yourself in the deep end, and I did for this. But this was at the point where I understood I am a consistent person. This is definitely intrinsic to my personality. I have a lot of things in place. For example, I'm documenting the journey, so it is more likely that I can stay consistent and do this. And I just went in and threw myself in the deep end. If I was recommending this to someone else, I would not say start with 4 hours a day, obviously, because you're probably not going to be able to actually follow through with this. If I was thinking for the average person, even for me, okay, in 10 years or in 5 years time, you want to be fluent in Spanish, I wouldn't say, okay, start doing 4 hours a day. That's just stupid. But it's just, I tried to compress the timeline to achieving an outcome. And I thought, okay, I can do this. I've proven to myself that I can do this. And I went out and did it, or I'm doing it. But I don't think it was the smartest way of going about it, but I think it's tested my consistency, and it's proven that it is a possible thing to do, to have this level of consistency, and it's probably developed my personal identity as someone who can be consistent. And I think it gives me confidence for taking on other challenges which require consistency. For example, with the running. Last year, we started running. Well, you've been running for a while, but we started running marathons, and you've run 14 marathons now. I'm a lot behind you, but I put all my data into ChatGPT and I said, okay, these are the inputs I'm doing. Where am I going to be in 5 years? And it gave me the outcome where it said I was going to be. I basically said, look, chat, this is my paces. I'm currently doing 9-minute Ks in zone 2. This is embarrassing. This sucks. But these are my inputs. I know I'm going to be consistent with this. Where am I going to be? And it said, okay, in 5 years' time, your zone 2 pace will be about 4 minutes 45 or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's great. In 5 years, I'm going to have a 4 minute 45 zone 2, because there's just zero doubt now that I will be consistent with that. And it's like, okay, this is awesome. This is what the outcome is going to be. And I think if you have conviction in the fact that you can be consistent, then the future seems really exciting. The goals that you're going to achieve, because these are the inputs and I just will do these, are there. And it's like, okay, this is available. If I want to do this, I'm going to have this outcome, because I know I can be consistent. And I think if you can train and develop your identity as someone who can be consistent, then you can look at these goals and just break it down into what are the inputs. And then you go, all right, well, does it make sense for this to be part of my life? If the answer is yes, then there's your goal. You can go collect it in 5 years.
Yeah. No, it brings to mind the stark contrast between the general advice that you give when you have to be giving advice to a group of people, and the advice you would give to someone once you fully understand the context of their environment, their makeup, their history. Like you, at that point, when you chose 4 months of Spanish, 4 hours of Spanish a day, someone could have given you that advice and it being correct, knowing the environment you'd created for yourself. You're dopamine detoxed, you had your attention span, you had 3 hours in the day, your why made sense, you were committed to this goal and it made sense for you to want to achieve it. And so that advice probably would have made sense. It would have been like, here's a test to you. Like, you are consistent at things that are moderately hard to be consistent at. Here's something that's really hard. And it reminds me of part of the roadmap of dopamine detoxing is understanding where you're currently at, and then applying, well, what kind of level of consistency is going to be best for you to take that next step. It should be like pushing you, but it shouldn't break you to the point where you're not consistent anymore. And so yeah, I just wanted you to give you my thoughts on the fact that you are someone has that context of someone who can take on these absurd tests of consistency, but it's all dependent on, what makes you, your history, your environment, all these things that we've talked about in previous podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that that's part of what you touch on through dopamine detoxing.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do in these podcasts is provide a lot of foundations that, if applied, make the goals you decide to take on very likely for you to succeed. So, of course, if you can dopamine detox, if you can get if
you're listening to this and you don't know what it is yet, give us a brief.
Yeah, so
one-liner.
When we say dopamine detoxing or dopamine rewiring, what we're essentially talking about is removing online entertainment, living without online entertainment. I do this specifically by myself. So around other people, you might engage in some of it, but specifically by yourself, you're not scrolling, you're not watching TV, you're not playing video games, you're not binge watching stuff, right? You're not engaging in online entertainment. And what this does, it gives you a huge amount of time back. It gives you an insane amount of focus because you're no longer doing things that provide you instant gratification, that are providing you a lot of points of stimulus and training your brain to basically have ADHD, right? Mm-hmm. So having that is a huge unlock at the very beginning. Having consistency, being able to be the person who's incredibly consistent, having goals that are aligned with you, having long-term thinking, all of these things stack onto each other. And when you put them all together into a person, and then you say, spend 4 hours a day learning Spanish, they can do that.
It's possible.
But if you give that to the average person, to basically anyone, it's going to be like, what? Are you serious? No way, not a chance. And there's nothing inherently special about you or I, right? We've just specifically created a better mental environment, obviously a physical environment as well, that just makes it incredibly likely to achieve the goals that we set out for ourselves. And I think if you're incredibly confident in the fact that you can be consistent, I think that's a big one. And there's a lot of things that sit beneath your ability to be consistent, but this is kind of what we're building on.
Yeah, no, it's a true testament to the bricks that you've been able to stack. Like, it started with dopamine detoxing, and then we've gotten to this point where now 4 hours a day of kind of mind-numbing input is possible. Like, I'm on doing the same learning style. It's called like the comprehensible input. And like, I'm still on the beginner stages, and you are being talked at like a 3-year-old with like images popping up as they say the words so that you can understand what they're saying. And like, it is, if you're trying to compare that to watching Netflix, like, it is dog shit. Like, it is just not even comparison. Like, the dopamine does not hit the same. But if you don't have that comparison, if you've been able to remove online entertainment to where like the highest dopamine activity you can do is watching someone speak to you in Spanish, like you're a 3-year-old, then the friction's just lower. It's easier to achieve that. And so, I mean, it's a great point. Like, there's nothing special about us. And like, a lot of people are like, oh, wow, you're running these marathons. That's so crazy. I could never do that. Or like, oh, you're learning a language as well. Like, oh, whoa. It's like, it's really nice to hear, but I never feel like, oh, there's something special about me that allows me to do that. It's just starting with the foundations of unlocking your brain and building an environment in which you can complete these supposedly difficult tasks more easily.
Yeah, I know for a fact that the content you're watching at the very start is particularly brutal. It is particularly mind-numbing. But I want your thoughts on this, because you're on this dopamine rewiring journey as well.
Yep.
How do you compare your enjoyment of watching stuff like that right now to, for example, watching YouTube videos when you were consuming a crazy amount of online entertainment all the time?
The best way that I can describe it is when I was watching whatever I wanted to watch all the time, like by myself, was watching YouTube videos at breaks at work, was, watching TV shows by myself, etc. It was an elevated state of reward. Like, my dopamine was higher than my baseline. So like, this is fun, this is good, this is enjoyable. Not nothing crazy, but like, this is like stimulating. And then it would end and I'd feel pretty shit because I knew that that's not really what I wanted to be doing with my time. It's probably very little I remembered about it. And like, overall, it just didn't leave me with a good feeling. Now, after dopamine detoxing, removing online entertainment when I'm by myself, whenever I watch someone speak to me in Spanish, like I'm a 3-year-old, it is still above my baseline level of like stimulation and reward. So the delta between baseline and like higher dopamine, higher reward, is probably still very similar to like how I used to be and like YouTube and Netflix. It's just been able to bring the baseline down of like, okay, well, I'm not constantly stimulated by scrolling and Netflix, like the most reactive like sensory experiences all the time, to where these things that usually would fall below the threshold. Like a year ago, watching those Spanish videos would have been really a long way down below the baseline. They're now above the baseline, which means so much more enjoyable, so much more rewarding. And then afterwards, you get like the satisfaction spike of like, oh, I know I just did something that was good. It is moving me towards my goal. You have that sense of completion, and you can start using that momentum to roll into other tasks.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much to unpack there. If I put a plate of sardines in front of you and you hadn't had any food, you hadn't eaten a single thing for 2 weeks, you're hoovering that down. You're monstering it.
Yeah.
If you have a full stomach, you just ate McDonald's, you're going to hate the sardines. You're going to be like, not a chance I'm eating that.
Yeah, you couldn't pay me.
No way. Not a chance on earth. And it is almost every part of our life, our mental state is dictated by comparisons, comparing things. And what we've done by removing online entertainment is we've essentially removed that comparison, because it's very uncommon in our natural environment to be able to receive a feeling of reward so easily and effortlessly. In your natural environment, you can't sit on your ass and feel incredible. It is literally impossible to do, right? When your baseline, and when you don't have these reference points of an easy thing that feels really good, it then makes someone's talking to you in Spanish like a 3-year-old an elevated experience. Because I like the word used there, elevated experience, because it's not necessarily that it is hyper stimulating, but is more stimulating than your baseline. And for most people, it is far less stimulating. And why I said there's a lot to unpack here is the other thing that you get out of it is, but I'm also learning Spanish. I also just feel really good because I'm now moving towards another goal, right? You're progressing forward. And then you get the reverberating effects of progressing towards goals, doing goal-oriented actions. When you finish a workout, you feel great because you're like, okay, I've just done something that's moved me towards a goal. I feel amazing. If you're doing something like watching Spanish, watching someone talk to you like you're a 2-year-old, but okay, this is an elevated experience. I kind of enjoy this, like in a weird way, but also I've now just learned a bit more Spanish. I'm now moving towards my goals. I have this after effect of feeling really good. It just combines on itself, and I think you just generally feel a lot better than I've just watched 20 TikToks and I feel terrible. I feel ashamed of myself.
Yeah, no, it's chalk and cheese. It's really just not even comparable.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, I want to ask you, what do you think about the long-term growth potential when you're able to incorporate consistency into your life?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very similar idea to what you have about it, just increasing the likelihood that you're going to achieve the goal. Like if you are consistent, you remove the chance that you're going to die before you achieve the goal. Like it's literally that simple. Like you can commit to, okay, well, if failure isn't an option, I'm going to get there. Like consistency is like the stand that you can put yourself on and like proclaim that, because you know that like work is going to get done at the required amount to achieve the goal. And so it's really just as simple as that. And like the confidence, the feel good aspect of being able to stand up and say that and rely on consistency. Coming back to the fear podcast, it alleviates you of the, am I going to get there? Or the, I got there, what next? Like all of these things that plague people that embark on growth, any type of journey of growth, they're always going to be plagued by, oh, but what if I don't get there? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not actually making any progress? Like if you know you have consistency, you can quiet those demons in your head. And to be honest, quieting those demons probably gives you back another like 30% mental capacity, because they're always there chirping away, and they're going to stop you from completing lots of actions. They're going to stop you dreaming any bigger. Like they're going to be a real anchor pulling you down.
Yeah. It's another reference to another podcast of fear of failure. But it's another one that we came to the conclusion that you can get rid of. You can get rid of most of your fear of failure if you just know, okay, I'm not going to quit, AKA I'm going to be consistent. That was the big one. If you can just be consistent, no, I'm not going to quit this, you can get rid of most of your fear of failure. And I think for a lot of us, the fear of failure is the thing preventing us from taking on the challenges and doing the goals, doing the things that we think, this is a kind of a scary goal. This would definitely bring me towards the kind of person I want to become, but I'm afraid this might not work. I'm afraid of what other people might think of me. This is a little scary, but if you can remove that fear of failure, it allows you to take action and actually head towards those goals and decide to take them on rather than just sitting there and being paralyzed thinking, I don't want to take this on because I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it.
Yeah. It's not surprising to me that we're able to link this podcast to so many others, because in all the other podcasts, we've been talking about consistency. Like, it's just a fundamental that runs through everything. So I want to ask you, when should you, or what happens if you're not consistent?
I think simply it is impossible to be successful at anything. It is impossible to achieve.
That's a big statement.
Yeah, I think it is impossible to achieve any meaningful goal if you cannot be consistent. I honestly can't think of a goal that you can possibly achieve if you're incredibly inconsistent at. Anything worth achieving anyway. I think it's, if you're trying to get in good shape, you just got to do the 80-20s consistently, right? I just don't see any aspect of your life that you could achieve anything worth achieving while being inconsistent. Whenever I think about the goals that I had and the reason I didn't get there, it was always because there were these actions that I just didn't always do. They weren't always there. They weren't part of my personal standards. I honestly think that you can't achieve anything big if you don't have consistency.
I mean, it's a bold statement, and I'm leaning towards it, but I'm going to challenge you here. The one thing that I'm thinking is, okay, well, maybe if there's a goal where being obsessed for a short period of time, getting lots of work done, kind of, you get that escape velocity, you kind of rocket ship out, then you can just be inconsistent, be asleep at the wheel. And if that thing can kind of continue without the need for more action for a long period of time, then like maybe you can get away with being inconsistent and still reaching, a goal that is worth achieving. Theoretically, I think that is true. There is not a single goal that is coming to mind at which that is true for. Like, at which you can just be obsessed for 2 months, achieve some level of success where you can just like completely be inconsistent at it.
Yeah, well, I think if we say that the definition of consistency, one of the components is doing it for a amount of time that it would be unreasonable that you don't achieve your goal. If you do it for long enough that you've achieved something that you just need to maintain, you've achieved the goal. So you've already done the consistency, right? It's just that the goal required a small time frame to complete, but you had to be consistent within that time frame. I think the bigger the goal, the longer the time frame is, but you're still being consistent. It's just the goal wasn't super hard. So for example, there's a lot of examples for this. Spanish, right? I'm going hard, but I'm spending less than a year learning Spanish, right? 7 months, and then I'm not really actively pursuing that. I'm just in maintenance mode, right? Is that I'm now inconsistent, or is that I've already achieved the goal? You know what I mean? The same thing with, I think, building a great physique. A lot of the problems that people have is that they optimize, they do things really well, they get to basically a maxed out physique, and then they don't stop. They like keep trying to optimize to gain the tiniest little thing that doesn't matter.
Injecting.
Yeah, or they start taking steroids. That's another great option. But you've already achieved the goal, and now you just need to maintain it, right? It's just the goal's already done. Now you just have to do the bare minimum to keep it alive, to not lose it all, right? Same with learning the Spanish. You need to do the bare minimum to make sure you maintain the understanding of the language. But you've already achieved the goal at that point. It was just a smaller time horizon to complete.
Yeah, and okay, that's completely bombshelled my my objection to your statement out there, and I truly believe it. Believe exactly what you've said, and it's so nice and fulfilling to hear you say that, because it's essentially, you just have to be consistent until you reach the goal, then you go into maintenance mode, and then you have that skill. Like, you can maintain being able to speak Spanish as long as you're speaking it every now and again. Like, we're planning on living in Spanish speaking places for at least a few months every year. You're going to maintain your ability to speak Spanish. And so then that's just like another life skill that you've unlocked, that probably only took you, for you 7 months, for me maybe a year. to achieve, and all you have to do is be consistent for 1 year. You achieve that goal, and that's something you have forever with a very small amount of maintenance effort required.
Yeah.
And there's so many things like that, like the physique, that's one, it's a bit longer. It's, maybe 4 or 5 years of consistent effort from like where we are now, which has been 4 years of inconsistent effort.
Yep.
But there's so many things like that. And I think if you're following these principles, like the 80-20, you're doing the consistency, you're setting the right goals, you're able to just keep adding these aspects to your life, these life skills, which then just enhance your experience.
This is a little off topic, but I want to talk about this a little bit. And it's that on the topic of not trying to become the GOAT, not trying to obsess with things, I think we set ourselves goals and then we be consistent until we achieve them. We have to know when we've achieved them and when it's time to enter maintenance mode. And I think that's what we're in the process of doing. We're not yet at the point where we've achieved some of our big goals, but once they're achieved, it's then time to go, all right, can I drop the volume of inputs I'm doing to maybe 20, 30%, and then do something else, add another layer to the character. It's not, okay, I've maxed out my natural physique, gymming 4 days a week. Let me gym 7 days a week to gain 100 grams of muscle in a year. It's like, no, you've achieved that thing. Let's drop the volume to 20% and let's add something else. Maybe try and get good at tennis or take on something else, get into running. I don't know.
Yeah.
Add something else. But I think a lot of people, they achieve the goal and then they go, all right, now I need to do more because I need to eke out the little bit of extra I can get from it, rather than going, okay, now my input requirement for maintaining this goal is just less, and I just have to be consistent with doing less stuff.
And I think probably a reason that a lot of people do that is the fear of being a beginner and starting something new, like being terrible at something in the beginning, because that's essentially what you're signing up for if you want to keep adding skills and abilities to your character. Is that you have to, okay, I'm going to be a beginner again. I'm going to go back to level 1 on this new endeavor and train that up to the point where it's my goal, and then drop it down to 80-20 again. But I think a lot of people there's too much fear or there's too much status involved with being a beginner at anything again, that they would prefer to just eke out the next 20% of achievements, even though it's going to require 80% of work to get there. And so I think like having the beginner mindset and enjoying that experience of learning and being the beginner, and not, feeling pressure that you have to be great at everything that you start, I think is fundamental to what we're trying to achieve holistically long-term in our lives, where we're continually learning and adding skills, and in a diverse, in diverse areas of life. Like, we are always going to be beginners. We're always going to be the worst in the room at one particular thing.
And especially because we're doing 80-20s, we'll always at some point be the worst and very rarely be the best. And that's fine. That's okay, because that's the way that we're going about doing things. I think it's very exciting the way that we're approaching these things, because I think it's quite unique. You talked about how there's that fear of starting and being the beginner. But I think if you know that you can be consistent, it's like, awesome. This is my story. This is my origin story. Because I know I'm going to be consistent with these inputs. We've got ChatGPT now. I'm sorry. Tell ChatGPT these are my inputs, and then say, where am I going to be in 5 years? And then you can be like, awesome, here's where I'm going to be. I can't wait for then where I can pick this up. This is just my origin story now. There's nothing to be scared about. There's nothing for me to be embarrassed or ashamed about. For example, right now, as I mentioned, I'm running 9-minute Ks at zone 2. One of our friends, Owen, he's running like 7-minute Ks at zone 2, and he's been running for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a humble beginning, but...
Tell them about your run with Richie.
Yeah. So maybe a month ago, I went for a run with my housemate. I said, okay, Richie, we're going for a run. I'm just letting you know that I'm going to be really slow. And he was like, all right, fine. I just got a Garmin watch so I could actually see my heart rates. We were running up a little bit of a hill, and I was running in zone 2. And he was like, can we go a bit faster? And I was like, I'm sorry, we can't go faster. I'm going to be out of zone 2. And he's like, okay, that's fine. And he started walking. And he was going faster than me, running zone 2. And the thing is, it's kind of embarrassing, but I'm very happy and excited to share this, because I know that it's not where I'm going to end up. I have so much conviction in the inputs and the fact that I will be consistent, that it's like, this is hilarious. This is where I am right now. I know in a few years it's not going to be like this, but this is just the beginnings. It's the humble beginnings. And I'm very happy to share it because I know it's not going to end up.
Yeah, again, it just goes to show your character. Like, you're okay with letting your ego take the hit of, yeah, okay, I have to run uphill at walking speed to stay in zone 2. Because you're so committed to, well, I have to spend time in zone 2. That is the 80-20 that I have to be consistent with to increase this metric. And so there's no, oh, well, it's embarrassing, so I'm just going to run faster so that I look good in front of my housemate who doesn't care. And like, ultimately, no one cares about what your times are. It's all about you. So yeah, no, it's a great story to tell, just be able to show more about your character, and it relates so well into what we're talking about, being able to use things like ChatGPT to say, okay, well, this is the goal, get excited by that, and then live in the weeds, be the beginner, and just put in that work.
Yeah, I think this is what we're going to document, hopefully document well, is the process of being the beginner and being consistent and being like, hey, this is where I am at the start, because most people who are documenting stuff have already made it. They're already absolutely at the pinnacle, at the best. But to be able to go, look, this is the reality for most of us. We're not doing it all so well. I'm not, running sub 3 hour marathons at this point. We're going to get there eventually, but hey, this is where I am right now, and it's fine. I'm happy to share it because I know it's not where I'm going to end up.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of a sad reality that those people, at least I felt this, they're not relatable. Like, I don't relate to the multi-millionaire entrepreneur anymore, because it's like, that is nowhere near where I am, or like the advice that I want to hear from like someone who sure, they went through the same struggles that I went through, but they're telling me advice now from where they are. Like, it's not relevant to me anymore. I can't really connect with you as much. So I'm really excited for us to share the journey from the point where it's like, there's a lot of stuff that's going on that isn't very impressive, but we're still documenting it because we have this fundamental belief that, okay, we're going to get to these outcomes, we're going to become these people. And we want to be able to document, record, share the experience of being the beginner, of like the embarrassing low highlight reel of like year 1, year 2 of these like 10-year goals.
Yeah. And we're just developing this student mindset and just happy to cop a bunch of L's. Not be like, this is what you have to do. It's more like, this is what I'm currently doing. It's probably going to change at some point. Who knows? I think the only thing that we're very certain on is the dopamine detoxing. It's like, okay, this is clearly the catalyst for huge change here. This is clearly making some serious mental improvements. Obviously, this is giving me a lot of time back. And essentially all we've done is replace the lowest ROI activities that you have in your life with slightly higher ones. Shock. You're going to produce pretty good results. But outside of that, we're very happy to be like, look, I'm not going to give you specific advice here. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. We're going to see if it works. It's probably going to change, but this is just what I'm doing right now. This is how it's going. I think we're just documenting what we're doing, and then eventually we'll get to the point where people will be able to go, I want to be like that one day. But right now, most of it's like, I am here right now.
I'm here with you. Yeah, no, and the dopamine detoxing is really just like the core fundamental that's unlocked all of that, because our goals are abnormal. They're not ordinary. You could almost say they're extraordinary. Like, some of the goals are pretty extraordinary. Like, we want to run sub 3 marathons and run a marathon every month. We want to reach our max physical physiques. We want to, learn multiple different languages. We want to, build businesses to certain like income levels.
Live in a bunch of different countries.
Like, all these things, they're not ordinary goals, which therefore means that you have to not be doing ordinary actions. You have to not be doing what everyone else is doing. Okay? What is everyone doing right now? Wasting time on online entertainment. What is the only thing you have when you're at zero? Is you have your time and your attention. Okay, so you need to do something different with your time and attention to what everyone else is doing if you want to achieve something that no one else is achieving. Okay, that's why dopamine detoxing is the fundamental thing that just makes so much sense as the foundation which we build all of these blocks on top of.
Yeah. I mean, by definition, being extraordinary is doing unordinary things, doing things that aren't the normal. It's not for everyone. Well, actually, I say that. Theoretically, it is for everyone because it benefits your life in every facet, I think. But I just think not everyone is willing to do that because they don't see the potential that they have. And I think that's not having that long-term vision of your life and not believing things are possible, thinking that I'm different, I can't do this. I remember it was something related to some sort of fitness thing I was doing when I was in my full-time job a few years ago. And one of my coworkers said, "Oh, I want to do this, but it's a little bit hard." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I reckon you can do it." And it's like, "Yeah, but I'm not you." And I just thought, but what do you mean? Like, there's nothing intrinsically different about me. We are very similar. There's very little differences that we inherently have as human beings. If you're trying to be the greatest basketball in the world, I'm sorry, but you're probably not a 6'10" black dude. So you might struggle with that. Like, there's obviously genetic limiters at trying to be the best, but there's very few things that are stopping you from being really good at a lot of different things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, just this idea that you have to be someone, like there's something different about you is all wrong. It's really just like the fundamentals that have laid one on top of the other. Something like a picture that's coming to mind is, recently I was listening to a Huberman podcast where they talked about your kind of neural pathways being like you're walking tracks in the snow. So if you just walk from the bus stop to your front door, and that's the only path you walk, and you imagine it's snowing, there's going to be one really deeply entrenched route from the bus stop to your front door. Okay, and that's going to be essentially the only route you can take after a year of doing that, because the snow is just built up around you. And so I think a lot of people are too deeply entrenched in their routines, in their lifestyles, that the thought of just not heading towards the bus stop, there's just a wall of snow in front of them that just seems impossible to mount, to push through. But really, like, it's that thing of like, fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. Like, the snow, it really isn't anything. You can just push through it. You can just walk that way. So I completely agree that it is for everyone. But I think a lot of it is just a mindset shift of, okay, well, it can be for me. I can be that person. I can, I can change. I can want these things. I can achieve things that seem impossible. I think a lot of people just don't have the proof, and they're too entrenched in their ways to allow themselves to believe that it's possible for them. And it makes sense, because that's a really difficult thing to start believing. Because then once you believe it, it's like, okay, well, now it's your choice. You're choosing not to do it. So every time you continue down the path that you know you don't want to go down, you can then whip yourself and say, oh, well, I know I can do better, but I can't. It's much easier to say, well, no, I can't do better. It's simply out of my control. But as soon as you take that responsibility and you realize, okay, well, there's nothing different from Cormac and me, this guy at work, he suddenly has the responsibility to do something about it. And that's painful if you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Good thing you do know what to do. You just need to dopamine detox.
Yeah, but no, I like the word you use there, proof, because as soon as you have evidence that when you set yourself a goal, you achieve it, it's like, oh, I can do that. And oh, there's a lot of things that maybe I thought were impossible, but now are possible. And I think the more that we have built up a mountain of proof and have accumulated achievements and specifically just done things over long periods of time and been happy with the inputs that we've done, we've realized there are bigger goals we thought that were impossible, but are actually very much possible. And we have evidence that we can achieve those. Oh, I've spent 4 hours a day learning Spanish for the past 7 months. Well, why can't I do this? That's not harder than this. Or, I've run 14 marathons. Okay, this is probably not going to be as hard as running 14 marathons. And the more you can build up that proof as to, okay, if I set myself a challenge, a goal, I can achieve this, it opens up your mind to the possibilities of what you truly can achieve and what you can get done.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so we've talked a lot about all the different areas which we've used consistency in our lives. What is the one? What is the part of life that is most rewarded when you apply consistency?
There's so many. I think health is one of the biggest ones, because I think health is one of the most obvious ones. Is if I do this, I'm definitely going to get there. I think for certain things like businesses, you can do things and not get there. Like there's a bit of unknown. I think for health, it's pretty much defined. If I do these things, I will be in a pretty good state right now. So for example, if you're trying to get in good shape, if you're eating a gram of protein per pound of body weight and you're working out 4 days a week, and you do that consistently, you're gonna basically essentially max out your physique, max out your genetic potential for how you can look, how much muscle you can build. It's pretty obvious. If you sleep really well and consistently, like if I go to bed at similar times every day and I get 8 to 10 hours of sleep, I'm going to unlock so much recovery, so much ability to have good mental performance and just feel amazing. Okay, this is pretty obvious. If I'm just consistent with this, I'm gonna have huge unlocks. And as I mentioned before, if you figure out the health and for example, you're aging very slowly, you have very high energy levels for a very long period of time, you're almost slowing down the rate at which you go through life. And if you can slow down the rate at which you go through life, and on top of that, you've removed all of the lowest ROI activities, the online entertainment, then you can make very big progress. And I think a lot of that comes from the health. And I think there's a few levers in the health that if you can just pull that consistently, you're gonna have huge potential.
I 100% agree. It's health for me too, for 2 reasons. One, it increases your ability to do more that day, like the sleep, like the exercise. If you're prioritizing your health, if you're consistent with your health, you have more energy, you have more focus, you can do more in a day. That's like a huge unlock. The second thing is it then means you get more days to do things because your longevity is increased. So it's like not only are you more energized, more focused, more productive, in a better mood during the day, you then have a longer amount of time to be able to stack input to then create, to then achieve goals. So health just has to be the one that is the biggest unlock. And it's because we selfishly talk about like, what are we able to do in our lives? And like, we're all going to die one day. Like we want to maximize what happens, what we're able to experience, the things we're able to achieve. Like health is the thing that's going to give you more time to do that and more energy to do it in the moment. So it's got to be health.
Yeah, and I think you articulated that a lot better than me. The big thing here actually, when we think about it, is the energy. You do just have more energy and more time.
Yeah.
Like you just have more life. You have more energy in the day so you can get more things done in the day, but they're just more days, right? They're 2 really big unlocks. I think it's hard to predict this far in the future, but I think the way that technology is progressing, I think if you can be pretty dialed in with your health, I think we're going to be living really long lives and really long lives with pretty good energy levels. But I think if you don't figure this stuff out early, if you become overweight, for example, if your sleep is terrible, if you're, cranking a bunch of caffeine to try and get yourself through the day, and you're just feeling shocking all the time, this is going to age you and wear down your body. And it's hard to say that we're not going to be living to 150, over 150. We could theoretically live forever. Like it's hard to say that is definitely going to happen, but I think there is a world where that is possible. But I think if you cook your health and you die early, you've kind of ruined all of that. Plus, you just have terrible energy, especially if you, for example, are in a full-time job and you're like, okay, I want to do this side hustle. You don't have energy for a side hustle if your health sucks. In fairness, it's hard to have energy to have a side hustle in the first place to be consistent with. Especially hard if your health sucks. I think the health is the core of getting a lot of other parts of your life right, just because of how much energy it gives you.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I'm really glad that Brian Johnson is doing the 2080. He's going 100%. He's getting the 1% returns on 100% effort for all of us, for all of our sakes, to prove what's possible in that domain. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I personally struggled with when I was working full time, trying to run a camper van rental business. Like, if you don't sleep well, there's 0% chance that you're able to like put in the work that's required to grow the side hustle. Like, you're already so constrained with your time and energy that like, if you're not health optimized to the point where you're giving yourself every opportunity to be able to put spare time into productive tasks, like you just don't have a chance. So yeah, I mean, that one just struck a nerve with like, because there was so many nights where, you chose a social event, you lost sleep, and then it just meant that you were able to do no productive work outside of your 9 to 5.
Do you reckon the sleep was one of the biggest things that dictated your energy levels?
100%. I was getting up at 5 a.m. to try and fit like 2.5 hours of work on the business before I went to work at 9. Like the difference of getting up at 5 a.m. after 8 hours of sleep and getting up at 5 a.m. after like 6.5 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep, is like chalk and cheese. Like your mental capacity, your cognition, your focus, like everything that is required to do work, at least on a business where you're sitting at your laptop, is just crippled by having poor sleep. And then like you put on top of that, you're still trying to exercise once a day. That's taking a portion of your energy and like allocating recovery resources. Like, yeah, the one thing that I'm just so looking forward to now that I've quit my job is being able to maintain perfect sleep no matter what. Even if I want to have a late night with my friends, even if time zone shifts, even if anything gets thrown at me, like I don't have to sacrifice my sleep because no one is telling me where I need to be at a specific time.
So I finished my first year of Whoop, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and I was reminiscing on, okay, what are the big takeaways? Because I now have a lot of data. Like, what does this all mean? And I think my biggest takeaway was just how important sleep is for everything in your life. I think sleep might be one of the biggest things for your health. It's not a sexy topic, which is why people don't talk about it as much, but it's like one of the biggest unlocks. And if you want to know how do I improve my sleep, well, I think the best way I found to improve my sleep is just don't have an alarm. Just sleep until you wake up. Your body knows how to sleep. The alarm is just stopping you from getting the proper sleep. And I think if you can get the sleep back, I think it's amazing. Don't quote me on this, but I think there was some sort of study where they compared the perceived well-being of people who were earning $50,000 a year to people who are earning $150,000 a year. And they found that an increase in 1.5 hours of sleep, one REM cycle, was better on your perceived quality of life than earning an extra $100,000 a year. Something like that. Don't quote me, but it was something like that. Like it is a huge improvement on the quality of your life. When you're the most stressed, when you're questioning what you're doing, when you're thinking, maybe this isn't right, I reckon it's nearly always correlated to I had a poor night's sleep, or I was partying last night, or something happened and I'm not thinking 100% clearly because my sleep kind of sucks.
Yeah. Sleep almost like reinforces the barriers that keeps all those thoughts and all those negative emotions essentially out. You're able to like be just more stable, more enjoyable. You respond better to challenges and to difficulties that happen day to day. Sleep. Can't wait to get more of that.
Yeah, and get it consistent. That's the big, hey, sleep. Sleep is a big one that becomes significantly better when you can do it consistently, particularly when you have consistent sleep and wake times. That really improves the quality of sleep.
And Whoop like shows you that because it has that sleep consistency score, which has a huge impact on what rating it gives you for the sleep.
Massive.
Super important thing there. But okay, now I want to know, what are the 3 things I can do right now to be more consistent?
Okay, first of all, we're calling it the consistency equation. Set the equation. If I do these actions, it would, on a long enough time horizon, it would be unreasonable that I don't achieve my goals. Setting that equation is very, very important. And one of the things here is knowing what your goals are. Now, if you don't know what your goals are, create goals that align with you. We did a whole podcast on that, but you kind of want to have goals that you know, when I get to the end of it, I'm not going to think, what now? I'm not going to be, what did I do all this for? But having goals that you truly want to achieve that are truly going to improve the quality of your life, and thinking, what are the inputs I need to do? And then can I do this over a long enough time horizon? And if I do, it would be unreasonable that I don't achieve that goal. So first of all, setting the equation. Second thing is creating the great environment. This was our first ever podcast, creating a good environment. But the consistency equation relies on inputs. It relies on actions as the primary lever for change, because actions are the only thing that can influence change in your life. So creating an environment, particularly that makes it very easy to do those actions and very hard to not do those actions, makes it almost autopilot mode to do good things, right? If you're trying to, I'm gonna keep going back to the health example, but if you wanna try and get in good shape, you wanna stop eating bad food, don't have junk in the house, have food meal prepped so that I can just go into my fridge, pull out the food, put it in the microwave, and I have a healthy meal prepared. That's a lot of friction preventing me from eating junk, and it's very easy for me to just do the right thing. So creating that good environment, I think, is step 2. And then third thing I would say is remove the online entertainment. If you remove the online entertainment, you remove the anchoring bias. If you always have a very easy thing to do in your life that feels really good, then every time you try to do the inputs, do the things that might be kind of hard, but the things that are moving you towards your goals, your brain is always subconsciously comparing this thing that you're doing, working out. It's comparing that to this really easy thing that feels really good. Sitting on the couch and scrolling TikTok, watching Netflix. It's always comparing, your brain is always comparing these inputs to the easy thing that feels really good. And I think if you can remove the easy thing that feels really good, you remove the anchoring bias, these actions, these inputs become above baseline. We talked about this earlier. They become the thing that's stimulating, the thing that feels good, rather than the thing that's below baseline that we don't want to do, that sucks. So I think those are the three big things. Set that equation, create an environment that allows you to do the inputs, and remove the online entertainment so that your brain isn't constantly comparing these inputs to things that are really easy, that feel really good.
Yeah, make hard things easy.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. The environment was, it was a reason it was our first podcast, because I think, well, removing online entertainment creates an incredible mental environment, but I think if you can accompany that with a great physical environment, it makes it very easy to do hard things. It makes it, well, things that seem hard, but they're only hard in the default environment. If your brain is distracted, if you're constantly wanting to chase instant gratification, if you have cookies in the pantry, right? Everything's just easy to do things that aren't moving you towards your goals. So creating the good environment, pretty easy.
I'm going to give a pretty Cormac Taylor answer for here. My 3 things that I would do to be more accountable: set your North Star, decide on your actions and the standards for those actions, and set up some sort of accountability measure. Your North Star, goals that align with you. We've talked about it endlessly. Pick the right goal. Consistency should be part of that goal. You know, I want to lose 10 kilos in 10 weeks. I want to become the type of person that works out 4 times a week. Set the right North Star, then you know you're heading in the right direction. From there, the action that will get you to that goal should just appear out of thin air in your head. If it doesn't, ask ChatGPT. Give it as much context and detail as you can. It'll give you a good enough answer. It'll be the lowest hanging fruit. You can 80-20 that. Set the standard for what frequency that needs to be, or what frequency that needs to get to for the equation to make sense. For it to be unreasonable, you don't achieve the goal. If you have to start at a lower frequency, that's fine. First, build the consistency, then increase the frequency. And have some sort of accountability measure. If you're not the type of person that has proved to themselves that they can be consistent, rely on external accountability, whether that's sending a video into the family group chat, texting a friend every day when you do the thing or when you don't do the thing, you know, writing it on a whiteboard. These are all things that will help you achieve that baseline level of consistency to where you can say, I'm a consistent person, I can achieve these things, and you can build from there. But those are the 3 things I would do.
I love that. The great thing about accountability is that it works on 2 fronts. First of all, you have the social implication of, okay, I need to be accountable. If I say I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, there's a lot of people that are going to say, what are you doing, right? That is a certain mental barrier that makes it more likely for you to take on actions. The other thing about accountability is that it reinforces your identity. If you say, I'm going to run every day, and you have to, like my mum literally did this last year. They had a group chat and they would send a little video of them like, I just did my run into the group chat. Okay, accountability. You're now developing your identity as the runner. I'm the person who runs every day. I do this. If you layer those 2 together, it makes it much more likely for you to continue to do the actions. And as we know, the actions are the things that are going to get you to the results overall. The other thing I really like is the North Star you talk about. I mean, how important is that? I think that was one of the things that we both had, is that you need to have the North Star. You need to have how you're orienting yourself, because it's all well and good to make it easy to do actions, but the actions are just leading you towards a goal. If you don't know what the goal is, then what are you setting actions for? So I very much like that, I like that answer.
Yeah, we definitely want to avoid the what now scenario where you achieve something and it feels empty and you just go, okay, well, what do I do now? Like that's no place that anyone wants to be. So yeah, I think those 3 things set you off in the right direction to start becoming the type of person that can achieve extraordinary things. It's definitely been 3 things that have been staples that I've used to be able to do the things that people tell me are extraordinary. So
yeah, so speaking about extraordinary things that require consistency, is it 14 marathons you've run now?
Yeah, 14 marathons in 14 months.
Yeah, okay. That's consistent, right? I want you to kind of go through that a bit. Like what did that require from you, and what did consistency play in that?
Yeah, it's definitely like the most obvious and like headliney thing that's happening in my life that I can just say, 14 marathons in 14 months. It started back in December 2024. That's when I ran my first ever marathon. And that was just me proving that I could run a marathon. Like the most I'd ever run was about 33 kilometers, and then I Ubered home that run. So, a month and a bit later, I set out and I ran this first marathon. And then I was like, cool, okay, I've achieved this goal. Like it was kind of like a micro goal, it only took me a couple months to get to that point because I had a running history. And so I was at this inflection point, okay, like what now? And I was thinking about, okay, well I could run a faster marathon. I could like sign up for some event. But then I was like, okay, I'm probably just gonna keep having this what now moment of like, okay, I've achieved the thing and now I've got to like pick a new thing. And like the chance that I actually do pick a new thing and then commit to it again just seems like it was going to get lower and lower. And so I thought, okay, what do I value in terms of like characteristics about myself? What do I want to train? I want to train my ability to be consistent. I want to show that I can be a consistent person to myself and to other people. Okay, so what about a marathon a month? That seems extremely difficult, but also manageable. It's really only 4 or 5 hours a month that you have to go and do something. And then that's it. So it was an uphill battle. Like I went through injuries where I had to take 2 months off. And so then I had to run 4 marathons in 2 months to get back to the average of 1 a month. But having that as my North Star of like 1 marathon a month, and like every time I ran a marathon, proving to myself, okay, that's another like tally. That's another piece of evidence in the corner of I am the person I say I am. I am a consistent person. I can achieve the goals that I set for myself, was so rewarding that it so quickly became part of my DNA, especially when you're telling people, oh yeah, I'm running a marathon this month. Oh yeah, I'm running a marathon every month. Like what you said, you're stacking the accountability. It just very quickly became part of my identity. And now it's something that I almost don't have to think about. It's just, oh yeah, okay, it's usually going to be every first weekend of the month, I'll run a marathon. But like, if you had told that to my December 2024 self, I would have been like, what the hell? That seems crazy. So it just goes to show you how like your perspective can change once you start achieving these things. You apply the consistency.
And in maybe September, you ran 75 Ks. And because I remember you talking about this and you thought, okay, I'm not sure this is the goal I'm setting for myself. I'm not trying to be an ultra runner. I'm just trying to be consistently doing a marathon every month. So how did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, again, it was like reaching that boredom point. Like I'd run, 6, 7, 8 marathons or whatever, and I was getting bored of running marathons. I thought, oh, well, I'll run 50K, like it's only 8 more K. And then I did that. Okay, well, like I could run 75K. And I ran the 75K and like I could tell it was taking a bigger toll on my body. And it was also just a what now? Like afterwards, it felt empty because it wasn't really the goal that I had set for myself. It wasn't like part of all of this identity that I wanted to build. And so it was just more affirmation that like, no, the goal is a marathon a month and like proving to yourself that you are consistent. You can do the same thing again and again. Like that is what makes it an extraordinary achievement. It's not the fact that you can run 150 kilometers in one go. Like that's not the goal I want for myself. And so running the 75K was just a realization of that no, the consistency is what I'm after here. Like that is the special sauce that I'm chasing.
When do you think it's going to stop?
It's going to stop when I probably have a 4th health professional tell me that like this is extremely detrimental to my health. At which point I'm hoping I'm at least like 75, 80 years old. Like as long as it is physically possible for me to do it and I'm not it's not extremely detrimental to my longevity, I will do it.
Do you reckon you get 1,000 marathons in?
Well, how many is that? 1,000 divided by 12 is...
You may test me here. 1,000 divided... It'll be like...
It's almost 100. It's more like 70 years or something.
Yeah, 70 years around that. So...
Well, I started when I was 20. So, I mean, if I'm living to 150 and I get a little bit of reverse Brian Johnson aging in there, 1,000 could be on the cards here. But I mean, 500 I think is a definite.
Yeah, I think... 500 would take you... I don't know, 20 years, 30 years. No, maybe 40 years. Yeah, it might be 4. Okay, so you would probably get around 500 marathons by the time you're 60. assuming that you can continue to do one every month.
Yeah.
And
And
that
like, that's
would
a
be
crazy
wild.
thing to be able to say. That's almost unheard of, I would say, compared to I ran 100 kilometers once. Like 100 kilometers once is an extremely impressive feat. Like you should be patting yourself on the back if you can do that, because you're in the top 0.001% of people and runners in the world. But like it is so much more impressive to say you can run a marathon, you've run 600 marathons. And I think it's because consistency becomes so impressive when you expand the time horizon. When you have a long enough goal and you're committed for that long time, like that level of commitment and consistency just becomes impressive by itself. So it's like a multiplier on like, this is a pretty difficult thing. Oh yeah, but I've done it so consistently. It just becomes such an impressive like statement to be able to say.
I think it is going to be insanely impressive. It's already an impressive statement. I know 14 marathons in 14 months. Most people are like, that's impressive. Just wait until Toby, 60-year-old Toby going, all right, this is marathon 600, month number 600. Here we go. And he's all wrinkly and old. Actually, probably aren't. You're probably looking fresh and new, Brian Johnson'd up.
I'll have robo legs by that point maybe, we'll see.
I don't know, they consider that a natty 500k marathon.
Yeah, the augmentation. Well, I mean, yeah, stick around. I'll probably still be posting content then, so...
Well,
Stick
that's
around.
the other thing. We talk about consistency, and I hope that we're going to be able to look back on this as podcast number 14 and say, well, now we're at 1,000, right? It would be amazing if we can continue the consistency in lots of areas of our life. I think the content, particularly, is not something that we talk about because it's almost like breaking the third wall, really.
The fourth wall, yeah.
The fourth wall, yeah. But it really is something that I think benefits almost the most from consistency.
Yeah, I mean, it's having this stuff recorded, like A, it works for accountability for both of us, but B, like to be able to reflect back on this and like having done the things that we think we're going to be able to do is just going to be another level of fulfillment and enjoyment. And then to be able to like share that with other people and to like, I'm imagining like being able to like, you know, my 20-year-old kid watching me at 20 years old talk about these things that I was going to do. And he can look up to me and see that I've done all the things that I said I was going to do. I think that'll be a proud moment for sure.
And this comes from conviction in the consistency. It comes from the fact that we know we're going to do these things because we know we can be consistent. I think this is one of the things that actually gives you the most confidence. I think a lot of confidence comes from the fact that you know that you can be consistent. Because if you know your inputs are right and you know you can be consistent, then why aren't you super confident? You probably are going to be. There's very few things that are holding you back from being extremely confident. I'm sure we probably come across this way, almost arrogant, the way we talk about some of our goals with such conviction. And it's because we just know that we can be consistent. When you are able to use consistency the way we're using it, it just makes almost a guarantee on your goals. Outside of injuries or things that you can't prevent, dying, right? There's not a lot of things that are going to get in the way of these goals as long as you can be consistent. And that's why we talk about it all the time, because it gives you confidence. It allows you to achieve almost anything as long as your inputs are correct. It's just the biggest life unlock, I reckon.
Yeah, there's a reason we talk about it so much, and it is the reason we've talked about so many other things while we talk about consistency. It's such like a fundamental part of what's going to allow us to achieve the things that we have envisioned for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could give life advice to someone on what to do about anything. And it's always going to be great advice as long as they can be consistent. And I think this is the biggest issue that people can come into contact with. For example, what's the best diet? Well, the best diet's the diet that you can stick to. What's the best workout program? It's the workout program that you can stick to. What's the best running protocol? The running protocol that you can stick to. The best thing is the thing that you can stick to. And I think the thing that I have hopefully been able to do and will continue to be able to do is identify what objectively the best thing is to do and just know that I can be consistent in that, because that's going to obviously give you better results than just doing the thing you can stick to. But if you know you can be consistent, just do the things that you can do consistently. Don't do the perfect things if you can't do it consistently. It seems so obvious, but I think not a lot of people will do that. I think everyone's trying to optimize certain things, but if optimizing makes you less consistent,